Welcome to the June 2020 ODE ITC EMIS Training video. We'll begin with reminders and suggestions on finalizing FY20 EMIS reporting, followed by information on both the graduation and retention collections. Then we'll review upcoming EMIS changes for FY21, which we would typically provide as part of our annual OAEP Spring Conference recap. Next, we'll look at the latest updates in ODEX, and then wrap up with a few miscellaneous items. Remember, the resources section at the back of the presentation will let you know where to find additional information on all the subjects covered in this presentation. So let's begin with the remaining FY20 reporting topic. Before we get into that, just a note that we will be discussing Gen Issues reports throughout today's presentation. And just as a reminder, when you're emailing a data manager for assistance with a question regarding a Gen Issues report you've received, it's important to remember to not include student identifiable information, such as names, of course, in those communications. We have a dedicated slide in the resources section regarding Gen Issues where you can find some more general information. And that information is also included in the Gen Issues report explanation document. Before we get started with the year-end reminder items, we do want to point out that the special section of the EMIS manual containing COVID-specific guidance is out now. Version 1 was posted May 28th and included instructions on reporting retained status options for third graders, reporting scores for students unable to take CTE technical assessments, and reporting calendar data. Version 1.1 of the special section was posted June 18th, and it was to make a correction in the retained status section that was not related to COVID-19, which also prompted section 2.6 of the EMIS manual to be updated as well. Version 1.2 was posted June 22nd and is the currently posted version. It updated reporting guidance for program code 410010 for Career Technical State Competition participation. The Career Technical Planning District report card includes the calculation of the % of students who are career and post-secondary ready. This program code is one of the ways students can show partial readiness. In order to not punish schools for the canceled assessments, this code can be reported in FY20 only for students who qualified for state level or higher competition that was canceled due to COVID-19. So let's begin guidance on wrapping up FY20 reporting. And throughout here, we will include COVID-19 related information wherever it's relevant. This section will be grouped by data set, and we'll start off with student data. When verifying attendance reporting before FY20 closes, remember to refer to House Bill 197 guidance, which says that students at traditional districts and community schools will be deemed to have been in attendance during the school-ordered school building closure. This also applies to JBSs. Community schools implementing blended learning must document all non-classroom based learning opportunities and report attendance accordingly. Additional guidance for community schools implementing blended learning can be found in the FY20 Community School FTE Review Manual. E-schools are not included in the House Bill 197 provisions related to flexibility in meeting minimum hours, and these entities must continue to document hours of instruction, based on their software capturing logins and logoffs of their students. Districts will also want to be sure and verify that all student truancy and excessive absence records are reported for thresholds met prior to the ordered school building closure. House Bill 197 guidance can be found on the COVID-19 page regarding truancy and excessive absence, and also a reminder that a new fatal error was implemented in the data collector in cases where the student truancy and excessive absence record is reported for a preschool student. House Bill 197 does not change the way seniors should be withdrawn. In terms of the effective end date, for students who completed all requirements at the end of the regular school year, or as commonly referred to as regular graduates, the effective end date should be the last day of school based on that student's calendar or assignment. In situations where districts have shared students, each district's respective last day of school should be reported as the student's effective end date. And so the effective end date for each of these entities will likely be different. Summer grads are still handled the same as well and defined the same as well. And they are students who met graduation requirements after the last day of their senior year, but before the first day of the new school year. Then it comes down to, dependent upon when the actual end date is, when to report it. If a summer grad's end date is before July 1st, that end date should be reported in the current year end of year student collection. If a summer grad's end date is after July 1st and before the first day of the new year, that end date is reported in all of the student collections in the new year. Withdrawal reasons for graduates. Which reason to report depends on the reporting entity's relationship to that student. The educating district issuing the diploma will report the reason of 99, and this includes JVS students. The sending district for JVS students reports the reason of 99. Students in shared situations, for instance, open enrollment, the resident or sending district of that shared student will report a withdrawal reason of 41. In terms of JVSs, they have the option of reporting either the 99 or the 41. Any non-graduates that the district knows will not be returning to their district for the upcoming school year should be reported with appropriate dropout withdrawal reason in the 7 range of withdrawal codes. And of course, whatever reason you're reporting for a withdrawal, it's important that all documentation is maintained, and you can refer to EMIS Manual section 2.1.1 for information on supporting documentation for students withdrawing. As part of wrapping up your FY20 reporting, also be sure to verify the grade level next year reporting for kids who finished the year and those who withdrew at any point during the year. Students who will be in the same grade level again next year would be considered retained, and the grade level next year element is part of that process and is still required. Even though only 3rd graders will be reported in the FY21 retention collection, they should still be verified for students in all grades, and that includes kindergartners in districts with 2-year programs, along with any seniors who will be repeating 12th grade. For students being promoted, also verify that the grade level next year is being reported with that student's next grade level for the new year. And then a few other groups. Dropouts. These are students who are withdrawn with a withdrawal reason in the 7 range of codes. The grade level next year reporting would be DR. Students who are graduating, being withdrawn with reason 99, GR is the appropriate grade level next year option for these students. And then students being withdrawn with any other reason beyond those mentioned, double asterisk is the correct option for reporting in the grade level next year element. When reviewing third grade reading guarantee related data, there are a couple of COVID-19 specific points to remember. Typically, reading diagnostics are to be administered to students who transfer into a district within 30 days of the transfer. House Bill 197 provided flexibility for FY20 to allow that time frame to be extended to 70 days if needed. Bear in mind this flexibility as you go about your verification process on your diagnostic reporting. Districts were expected to continue supporting students with reading improvement and monitoring plans for the 1920 school year. And there was no change in RIMP criteria, meaning that RIMP-specific program codes should be reported only when all RIMP criteria were met. And outside of that, for interventions provided, non-RIMP specific program codes should be used. But House Bill 197 did grant temporary flexibility to how RIMP services could be delivered. We would refer you to that guidance on the COVID-19 webpage for help with your data review process. As you're finalizing your FY20 reporting, remember that as with all aspects of EMIS reporting, districts are to report what is. When reviewing program codes, that means any service students received or activities they took place in at any point during the 1920 school year should be reported with all the appropriate program codes, including but not limited to students meeting an alternative graduation pathway, even if they're graduating under House Bill 197 flexibility. Diploma seals. There are new diploma seal program codes in the works, which are not available as of yet, but these new codes are specific, will apply to the class of 2023. However, they could apply to a 2020 grad. We expect, though, that that would be a rare occurrence. Also, interventions, including gifted interventions, clubs and organizations, and sports. In terms of sports, generally speaking, program codes should be reported for sports even if they only began practicing and no games took place. Although spring testing did not take place, assessment exemptions should still be reported in EMIS with the student special education graduation requirement record based on the student's current IEP. EMIS coordinators are encouraged to work with their district's special education staff to ensure that all of these exemptions are included in their FY20 EMIS reporting. During our February-March round of trainings, we talked about Indicator 12 compliance calculations now being based on a student's IEP outcome beginning date instead of the event date in relation to the third birthday for kids with a preschool transition conference event. We also said that there would be a new Gen Issues check in relation to Indicator 12. This new Gen Issues check is number 480. It was completed in late May, and you'll see this new Gen Issues check generated when any of the items listed here in slide number 11 are reported, including the Indicator 12 related information, where there is an IEP outcome beginning date that falls after the student's third birthday. You can refer to the report explanation for the Gen Issues for full details on this new check. Kids assigned to a graduation cohort for the first time, this happens either by the grade level reported in EMIS for the student as of October 1st, if that student was reported in a prior year, or by the fiscal year began 9th grade reporting for the student if they were not reported in a prior year. Just a review there of how that assignment occurs. And while it is important to review all graduation cohort reports, as we know, cohort assignment errors can only be fixed with regular EMIS reporting in the first year that that assignment takes place. The newly assigned to grad cohort report was created to help with this, and it includes just students being assigned for the first time to a graduation cohort from across all of the cohort reports. We encourage districts to use it to help identify what corrections might be needed, if any, to your data reporting to make sure to get any changes submitted if corrections are needed before your end of year student collections close. Otherwise, you'll have to resort to an appeal for correcting a cohort assignment error. Just a quick look at a couple of other records as part of your student reporting. The Organization General Information Record, the DN record. The focus here is on items that we receive questions on in relation to the statewide closure. The first one being the new assessment first day of district test window attributes. These can be reported in FY20, but they don't have to be since tests did not take place this year. And then regarding the initial eye exam and physical education evaluation requirements, as part of the DN record, there was no House Bill 197 provisions for either of these. So districts should be reporting what you have in both of those areas. And then the district testing year-end record, the DT record, of course, should only be reported for non-state tests that were given to an entire grade level. And then beyond that, there is also no House Bill 197 provisions for this record either. And so districts should be reporting what you have. Moving into the staff course data set. In terms of staff separation, the information we're sharing here is a reminder. This is not new, and it's to remind folks that whenever you have staff who worked during the FY20 school year who then left at the end of the year, a separation date and separation reason needs to be reported, but the position status should not be changed. And so in connection with that reporting rule, a new Gen Issues check has been developed. It's check number 481. It was completed earlier in June. And you'll see this Gen Issues check generated whenever a staff member was reported in the initial staff course collection with a position status of C, A, or I, but is now being reported with the position status of U in the final staff course collection for the same position code. So if this Gen Issues check 481 shows up for you in the data collector, that is your cue to correct the position status reporting for that staff member. Also in the staff course data set category, we want to talk about credit earned. So districts will definitely want to verify their credit earned reporting and making sure it's accurate for all students in courses that earn credit. The table in slide 15 illustrates how the credit elements in the student course record should be reported based on the amount of credit earned by a student. And our example course in our table is a course worth 1 credit as reported in the high school credit element of the course master record. Line 1 represents what should be reported when a student earns full credit for the course in the student course record. The high school credit element of that record should reflect option Y, and the partial override credit element should be reported with all zeros. In cases where a student earns partial credit, anything less than the full amount, the P option should be reported as the high school credit earned, and then the partial override field should reflect the actual credit amount that the student earned. We recognize that this is also an option that many software vendors use for reporting all high school credit earned as a default value, and that's perfectly acceptable. The information as we're sharing today, it should in no way be taken to mean that vendors have to change how they handle this. They're absolutely free to do that default value. On the none line, what we have represented here is a student who either didn't complete the course or didn't earn the credit. And in this case, the high school credit earned element should reflect option N for no, and zeros in the partial override credit field. And then the last row represents courses that grant no high school credit. Most commonly, this would be elementary courses. And so here, option Y would be reported in the high school credit earned field and zeros in both the high school credit element of the course master and the partial override credit element of the student course record. The current FY20 data collection calendar that's posted out on our EMIS page now reflects all changes for FY20 due to COVID-19. Many assessment collections were impacted, and so we would just encourage you to be sure to review that data collection calendar to make sure you're familiar with all of the new close dates. So the remainder of the information here on slide 16 is specific to the Career Technical Accountability Assessment collection. First off, straight out of the gate, we want to remind you to review the COVID-related guidance on CTE technical assessment reporting that can be found in the special EMIS manual section. And then also, there are a couple of reports that we want to just give a mention to that are part of the Career Technical Accountability Assessment collection. The first is the CTAC-1 report, the CTE Accountability Program of Concentration Technical Assessment Results Report. What a mouthful. This is a level 2 report. It is not out yet, but we did want to point out that when you start seeing this generated, keep in mind it is the same report that was new during the March D follow-up collection. It will display all of the technical assessment records, the GUI records that your district has reported for a student, in addition to industry credentials that you've reported for a student that were taken in place of a web exam, along with all of the aligned programs of concentration for those assessments. And this report is meant to help districts reconcile the students' tests with the programs of concentration reporting that the district has done for that student. The next report is a new level 2 report that is running right now in the CTE Accountability Assessment collection, and it is the Industry Credential Accountability Conflict Report. This report will only be generated when at least 2 districts are reporting the new IPD test type for an industry credential. This new IPD test type will indicate that the district reporting it paid for the credential and is requesting reimbursement. So only one district can be reimbursed. So this report is meant to help districts work together to identify which district should actually be reimbursed. And then the other district then must either not report the industry credential record at all, or at the very least change their reporting to reflect the test type of INP to indicate that they do not seek reimbursement. So in the financial data set, just another reminder that there's only one financial collection starting this year. It opened at the beginning of June and runs through the end of August. And just as a reminder, capital assets were removed from EMIS reporting, and so thereby making the financial supplemental collection no longer necessary. So it was deleted. And the point behind that reminder is that districts will want to be sure to verify that any other data that would have been reportable in the supplemental collection that you may have held off on reporting until the supplemental collection gets included in your regular collection reporting prior to the close of it at the end of August. We encourage districts to submit early to allow plenty of time to review the level 2 expenditure reports, in particular to verify their reporting in relation to the federal maintenance of effort requirements. All data reviews and appeals will still be taking place for FY20, with the exception, of course, of the end of course assessment, alternate assessment, and grades 3 through 8 assessment reviews and appeals. Obviously, since there were no test collections for any of those assessments. Remember, if a district knows they will need to submit an appeal, they can indicate that as part of the data review and verification process, and then of course must go on and also submit the appeal. All reviews and appeals that will take place for the rest of FY20 are posted on the webpage. So with the close dates of the regular collections happening more or less at the same time this year, you'll notice that when you go to look at the dates on the webpage, the review and appeal time frame will be less spread out than in previous years. Moving on to the graduation topic. In terms of House Bill 197 flexibility, information can be found on that on the graduation requirements and FAQ page at the COVID-19 webpage. And just to talk a little bit about that House Bill 197 flexibility, a student who already met graduation requirement at the time of the ordered school building closure would be a student who clearly qualified for graduation. It would not need the flexibility specified in House Bill 197, just to kind of get that disclaimer out there right off the top. The flexibility to meet curriculum requirements is for all other students. This flexibility extends through September 30th. Ultimately, determining whether a student is on track to graduate is a local decision. The main impact of COVID-19 on graduation is that under this flexibility, students do not need to meet assessment or alternate pathway requirements in order to graduate. All that being said, reporting requirements for the majority of graduation-related data remains unchanged. And some of those data pieces We covered as part of the remaining FY20 reporting topic. All of them we have listed here in slide number 21, and we'll be taking a closer look at a few of those items in upcoming slides. Before we move on, we do just want to say that in terms of the graduation-related assessments, many assessments are able to be reported as part of the graduation collection, including prior year end of course results and alternate assessment results, as well as fall end of course results that were not reported during the fall collection. But as we stated earlier, with no spring end of course or alternate assessment administration, you'll not have any spring results to report in this year's graduation collection. Along with the withdrawal date that we talked about as part of that remaining FY20 reporting topic, the diploma date is also part of what determines what type of a graduate a student is. So when we were talking about those regular grads earlier in terms of their diploma date, a regular grad's diploma date would be a date at the end of their senior year. And then for a summer grad, their diploma date would be a date that fell after their senior year, but before the first day of the next school year. Even though House Bill 197 offers flexibility to complete coursework through September 30th, if coursework is not completed and the diploma is not actually issued until after the earliest first day of school on any calendar in the district for the 2021 school year, that means that student will count as an FY21 graduate. So when we're talking about earliest first day of school, as an example, let's say a district has a preschool calendar with the first day of school of August 16th, and all of their other building calendars have a first day of school of August 20th. That district's earliest first day of school is August 16th. So any student that receives their diploma after August 16th would be considered an FY21 graduate. And then of course we don't want to overlook grad only instances. The grad only is cases where a student is issued a diploma who were reported as withdrawn in a prior year. It's also important to make sure and verify that the appropriate diploma type is reported for all of your graduates, especially where the honors diploma types are concerned, and especially because a number of honors diploma types were added to EMIS reporting a few years back. And another important reminder, a student is counted as a graduate based on diploma data reporting. Withdrawal reason 99 has no bearing in terms of a student being counted as a graduate. It's the diploma data that's key. Reporting guidance for the student graduation course summary record is unchanged. This reporting is still required. And so it involves reporting the total credits earned across all core areas, in addition to reporting dual enrollment credits that are documented or transcribed from a college. So please be sure and verify this reporting for all of your graduates. The Grad Issues Level 2 report is currently running in the graduation collection, and all of the result codes that could potentially appear in a Grad Issues report are listed here in slide 24. And you can also find additional information on all of those result codes and how the grad issues report can help you in the guidance found in the report explanation document out at our EMIS webpage. The EMIS data review and verification for graduation data will take place later in the fall. There will be 2 appeals for graduation data, both of which will open October 19th. One of those appeals will be to correct data that is used for the Prepared for Success measure on the report card, and the other to fix errors that caused graduation cohort assignments to be incorrect. If you do need to request an appeal, remember, the sooner you submit your appeal, the more time you will have to correct your data, and the more opportunities you'll have to receive and review updated EMIS reports. And that's true for any appeal, not just the graduation's appeals. Next up, we'll talk about retention. The FY21 data collection calendar is posted right now at our EMIS webpage, and it includes the FY21 retention collection, which has a new name, as we're showing here in the cover slide, FY21 retention grade 3 only. It's also going to have a longer collection window this year. The collection window will begin mid-July and run through the end of August. And plus, the reporting guidance for retention is a little different this year as well. The first difference is about House Bill 197, which included provisions for 3rd graders regarding retention under 3rd grade reading guarantee. Because of the mandated closure and districts not having to administer the spring or summer English language arts assessment, 3rd grade retention will not be based strictly on meeting the reading threshold, meaning that if a student is reading below grade level and not academically prepared for 4th grade, the district can still make the determination to retain that student. The next difference is who will be reported as retained, beginning with the FY21 retention collection. EMIS change number 20-195 is how this change has come about, and it came out in 2 parts. Part A is for the manual and documentation change, and Part B is to change the manifest and anything else needed in terms of processing your data. And it's likely that districts will be able to continue to report as they always have if they have an export from their software that includes all grade levels that gets uploaded into the data collector. That's fine. It's just that districts are no longer required to report retain status options for any other grade level besides 3. And so if other grade levels besides grade 3 come into the data collector for retention reporting, those records will simply be excluded. As you're preparing for retention reporting, we would encourage you to verify that all 3rd grade students who are exempt from retention under 3rd grade reading guarantee have been identified. There are exemptions for English language learner students, students with an IEP that specifically states the retention exemption, and students previously retained in any grade, kindergarten through 3rd, who received 2 years of intensive reading remediation. And the final item that we have here is not an exemption, rather it's an exception. And this is regarding students who can be promoted after passing one of the 3rd grade reading guarantee alternative assessments Again, this is not actually an exemption, it's more of an exception to the third grade reading guarantee retention rule. We would like to provide a review of the third grade reading guarantee specific retained status options and point out when each of these are appropriate to report. Bear in mind, what we're providing on these two slides is not a complete list of all of the retained status options. All of the options are all still relevant and should be reported accordingly. You'll want to refer to the FM section of the EMIS manual for the complete list of options. So for this year, the option of asterisk should be reported for students who met the 683 promotion score or the 46 reading subscore on the fall third grade English Language Arts assessment, and also for students being promoted to fourth grade using House Bill 197 flexibility. For all other third grade students, one of the other options must be reported. And so let's take a look at the circumstances for each. Option A would be appropriate for third graders retained at the end of the 1920 school year who will remain in third grade for the 2021 school year. Options D through F are for reporting the exemptions that we went down through on the previous slide. For the English language learners, that's option D. For the students with the IEP exemption, that's option E. And for students previously retained with the 2 years of reading remediation, that's option F. Option G is reported for those students taking the alternate assessment who are significantly cognitively disabled and are not just exempt from retention, but from all aspects of the third grade reading guarantee. Option H is for a student who was retained last year, who would have been retained into the new year, but ended up not enrolling back into the district for the fall. Options J through N should be reported for any instance where a student achieved adequate performance on an alternative assessment and so then can be promoted to fourth grade. That encompasses the exception that we spoke of, the last bullet on slide 29 refers to what we're talking about with options J through N. Option 5 is for students who did not meet promotion scores on the third grade English Language Arts assessment, but did meet a promotion score on one of the third grade reading guarantee alternative assessments, however, is being retained for a reason other than the third grade reading guarantee. Next is a quick run through of the list of changes for FY21. Keep in mind with the new change process, some of these changes will be in the manual, in the FY21 versions of the manual that were recently posted, even though the reporting or processing aspects of the changes you won't be seeing until later, until the collections begin happening. So we encourage you, as always, to watch the EMIS changes page for additional information as it becomes known. We'll get that information updated and out there for you. So you'll notice in all of the numbers listed in these slides, they all begin with 21, representing the fact that these are all fiscal year 21 changes. Starting with number 2, this is for potential updates to physical education subject codes. Number 6 is for an addition of a new 2-year provisional STEM license for grades 6 through 12. This change was moved from FY20 to FY21. The next three are grouped together, changes 7, 9, and 19. Number 7 is about CTE adding the VM curriculum code as a valid option for some existing career tech subject codes. Number 9 is to update the manual to match up CTE subject code names in the manual to align with how they appear in the matrix. And then number 19 involves name and description updates to some CTE subject codes. Change number 8, we'll see 3 new teaching endorsements. They are drama theater, computer science, and media arts. Change 10 is for a new service-related placement element being added to the CTE workforce development follow-up record. Options for this new element will be similar to the options for existing placement categories on that record. Changes 11 and 13 both involve industry credential changes. Number 11 is where CTE will be completing a comprehensive review of the industry credential list. And number 13 is a typical annual update by the Office of Career Tech to add and or remove industry credentials for FY21. Change 15 is for 2 new elementary licenses, the regular ed preschool through 5 and the intervention specialist preschool through 5. Change 20 is where March 31st will become the new majority of attendance IRN end date for all students. Change 21 is about substitutes on the TLC status report that began being issued in fiscal year 20. Substitutes were added incorrectly, causing some courses to be incorrectly marked as properly certified on the report. So change number 21 fixes that for FY21. 24 is removing position code 509. This position code was associated with a program that is no longer in effect, so it will be deleted. 25 converts the Every Student Succeeds Act Licensure Assurances Report to a Level 2 report, where it had formerly been delivered as a received file. Number 27, here we have mostly post-processing changes that may have an impact on the federal child count report. Of course, as that's further along, we'll share more information with you about that. 28 clarifies in EMIS Manual Section 2.11 that the student discipline record is required to be reported by Education Service Centers for discipline incidents for their preschoolers. '29, the EMIS manual and other documentation will be updated from LEP to EL to describe English language learner students. 33 is about a new military science license that will take the place of the former military science teaching field. Now, anyone with the existing military science teaching field will still be considered validly licensed. Going forward, anyone applying for a new license will need to apply for the new military science license. A couple more that are grouped together, 34 and 50. These are about the current manual career tech overrides for middle school validations and for Project Lead the Way. There are discussions ongoing to potentially automate these override processes. So we'll have more information as that moves along. 36 will update the DN attribute missing list to display phys ed evaluation attributes not reported for all appropriate grade bands for each building within a district. Change 37, this had been a 2020 change, but because there was no spring alternate assessment, it was moved to FY21. Basically, students are no longer required to wait until grade 10 to take the alternate assessment. They're now eligible to take it for the first time starting in grade 9, and so the missing list will be adjusted to accommodate for this change. Number 38, this is about a new critical check that came out in FY20 saying that when you report a student with a how received option of X, they should not be reported with a disability condition. So again, that new check was critical for FY20. It will become a fatal check in FY21. Again, that involves reporting a student with how received of X. They should not be reported with a disability condition. Number 39 adds a couple of temporary licenses, and number 45 will count those temporary licenses as full licenses for the purposes of proper certification. Both of these changes are to assist teachers who were unable to get licenses or license updates by July 1st due to COVID-19 closures. These two changes are only for fiscal year 21. Change 40 removes the IN grade level as a valid grade level option for EMIS reporting. IN was defined as infant toddler for students ages 0 to 2. But students are not supposed to be reported to EMIS until age 3. So therefore, the IN grade level option will be removed. Change 41 will add clarification to section 2.8.1 as to which credentials can be earned in the current year versus which credentials can be reported in the current year. And then Change 44 will resume the collection of the student graduation course summary record for students in grades 9 through 11. We still anticipate that this will be a separate and parallel collection to the graduation collection. And right now we know that it applies to grades 9 through 11. And if there are any changes to any of that, of course, we will make sure to let you know by posting updates on the EMIS changes page and talking about them in subsequent trainings. On a June ITC conference call, David Ely talked about the collection of student course grades starting in FY21. And we really don't have any other information to say beyond student course grades are due to start being collected in FY21. As we do learn more information, including the new change number, of course, we will add that information to our changes page. So next, we have some updates in ODEX to go over with you from the May 22nd and June 4 release notes. The navigation bar in ODEX has been reorganized in an effort to make it more user-friendly. What you'll see is that most used options are now located to the left of the global SSID search box, with the lesser used options appearing to the right of that. Users and agencies are now available as drop-down options under setup to kind of consolidate and make the navigation bar less busy. Some other options have also been combined as drop-down selections, and we'll point those out in later slides. The IRN and school year selection area has been given a different color to provide more of a visual separation from the navigation bar. Instead of it also being red, it's now gray. A new checkbox was added in the CCP module to allow districts to search on CCP courses reported by their district for students where the college hasn't reported any CCP courses. This checkbox is labeled Generated Courses Only, and it is available to all entities with CCP students. And the second item we want to touch on, this isn't something that's reflected in the screenshot in slide 39, but we did want to mention it. The earliest age out date has been removed from the generated courses. Again, those are courses that the district has reported. And this is because the earliest age out date does not apply to these courses. It only applies to courses reported by colleges. Those are the courses that age out and are eligible for funding. And so it wasn't necessary to have it attached to the courses reported by the district. So you'll see that change as well in CCP. There's a new conflict IRN query option in the student cross-reference module. This is a drop-down that will display IRNs that the district has a conflict or a not reported mismatched issue with. Using this new query option will allow the user to work on resolving conflicts for one particular district. And the best way to make use of this new query option is by first selecting a desired display mode, whether conflicts or not reported mismatch, and then select an IRN so that you can further narrow down your search results. The SOES option in the navigation bar is another one of those items that includes drop-down selections. Both community schools and resident districts will have the enrollments drop-down option from the navigation bar, and community schools will also have their calendar option available here. There are new find options in SOES for both community schools and resident districts. It is the viewable documents only checkbox, and this is for selecting just students with uploaded documents. And there's also a new review status drop-down option. This is specific to community schools. It's labeled ODE auto-approved new activity, and this is for community schools to see auto-approved students with new comments from the resident district. The information on slide 43 isn't an update or new, but we wanted to offer just a general reminder, since we are aware that many users still have not added contact information in ODEX, for all users to please do this. You can do that by completing the primary contact or the secondary contact information in the agency's area found under setup. Doing this will allow other users to be able to reach out to you to work toward resolving issues like conflicts in SCR or flags in SOES. So please and thank you in advance for your attention to that. So in the other section, we just have a few items to point out. The first one is regarding EMIS Advisory Council and work groups. Just a quick update on what's going on with both of these. Work is ongoing to implement all of the work that was approved in the June 2019 annual report, and the next annual report is currently being developed. As far as the 3 new work groups that started late winter, work has been delayed due to, of course, the mandated building closure, but the department is exploring the possibility of virtual meetings. So please stay tuned for further information. We've talked with you before about how the EMIS manual was undergoing a total review and revision. We want to give you an update on the latest with that process. It is ongoing, and here's where things are right now. All of the sections within each data set, students, staff, course, etc., will be released as a group. The exception to that is the Chapter 2 student sections, and that's because there are just so many of them. Currently, work is underway on Chapters 4 for course data and 5 for district building data, with the goal of having them out as FY21 versions early in September. Then next up will be Chapter 3, the staff sections, again as FY21 versions, with the goal being that they be out by either before the initial staff course opens or shortly thereafter. While in-person new EMIS coordinator trainings cannot happen due to COVID, we are still planning to offer them beginning in August as online modules through Microsoft Teams. The modules will likely be broken out by topic, so participants will have the option of signing up for modules based on their individual needs. Again, stay tuned. There will be an announcement coming up in a newsflash. And speaking of Microsoft Teams, it was announced in the April 22nd newsflash that Teams is now the state's official conferencing platform. And so to prepare for this transition, district staff are encouraged to communicate with their district's IT staff to make sure you'll be able to access Microsoft Teams, and also to familiarize yourself with the platform before the beginning of the sessions. That concludes today's presentation. Again, a reminder of our resources section. If you'd like attendance for your participation in the video, please send us an evaluation form. And again, check out all of the resources available to you within our resources section. Thank you for listening.